Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Barbeno's World. It has kind of been a while since the last one, and that's because I was just having trouble thinking of ideas for new projects, but now I finally think I have a really cool idea for something we can do in this episode. But first off, I have a few little minor things that I've got to finish up here at my smelting building. So one thing that I saved for today was building a pathway from here to my main castle. I want to kind of do an underground pathway, kind of like I did at my flower farm area. So I'm digging a tunnel like this, and it should end up in the courtyard of my castle. Alright, I finished up digging the tunnel, and it looks pretty good. I just continued the floor out like that. And then at the end, we've got this minecart thing. I really like using this trick to get up places instantly. And just drop down like this. Now we just gotta decorate this. So I'm thinking we should go with some stone brick and maybe cracked stone brick for the walls here. And maybe use some spruce pillars as well. Alright, I finished up decorating this hallway really quickly. And I also added a little entrance area here. It deals a little bit of suffocation damage, but it looks nice to go in. And I also had to place some dirt down up here to cover up some of those exposed parts of the pathway. So yeah, there's just one more thing I want to do, and that is add a proper path that comes out from that one over there, and that goes over to this building. As you can see in front of me, I have finished up with this path. It's nothing special, but now I think we can finally say that we're done with this smeltery building over here. So without further ado, let's get started on our new project. So the project that I want to get started with today is a witch farm. And I do currently have a witch farm right now, but I built it quite a while ago, and this one is not going to suit my needs for quite a few reasons. So first of all, I kind of just think we're getting to the stage in Barbeno's World that I already have farms for almost everything that's useful. It's starting to get to the point where I can just rebuild farms that I already have and make them a little bit more efficient or faster, just to suit my needs rather than building something else that's not as useful. This witch farm is actually quite old, and I don't really use it very often because it's also very slow. I think it only produces about 2,000 items per hour, and that's split between a lot of different item types. So overall, we're not getting a lot of useful drops like redstone and glowstone. Also, as you may or may not know, in the new Minecraft update that's coming out in a couple months, there's going to be some really big changes that are going to affect a lot of mob farms very negatively, especially witch farms. So what's going to happen is the world height is going to get significantly increased, so that there's going to be 64 more blocks of space below where the bedrock is now in 1.16, this version. So basically, the way that the spawning algorithm works means that in the new version, there will be double the amount of area for mobs to spawn at ground level. So rates for all mobs that are spawning at ground level will be decreased by about half. So since witch huts can only generate above Y64, that's going to mean that the rates for every single witch farm are going to be decreased by half. Hopefully I explained that well enough, and hopefully that justifies my new plan for a really big witch farm project. One thing that makes witch farms really cool is that they need to be built within the bounding boxes of the witch hut structures that generate in the world. Usually one only generates every few thousand blocks in swamps. So within this structure, you need to work with the space you're provided and develop a way to push the witches off the spawning platforms as absolutely fast as possible to get the maximum rates out of one of these witch huts. So in 1.16, the kind of ideal rates for witch farm would be around 4 to 5,000 items per hour, and that's with a really complicated setup. But what if you weren't limited by the size restrictions of a single witch hut? What if you found an area where there were 2 witch huts that could be loaded simultaneously by one player? And these are very rare, but I've managed to actually find one in Barbeno's world, this seed right here. And this is only about 10,000 blocks in 2 dimensions out from spawn. And we've got 2 witch huts which simultaneously are in the spawning sphere of a player. So the idea is basically that we can build a hyper efficient witch farm over here and another hyper efficient witch farm over there for a total of probably about 9,000 items per hour. But before we can start any of that, there's a really big problem, and that is the spawning sphere that I'm showing here contains a lot of other areas. We can't go really high up to move our spawning sphere up because we still need to contain these 2 witch huts. So basically, we're going to need to either spawn proof this massive area, including the caves underground, or get rid of it. So I've actually spent quite a while considering different ways that I might be able to spawn proof this area, including some like TNT duping machines to maybe bomb this out into a perimeter. But ultimately, I've decided that's probably not a good idea just because of how much water there is around. And I finally come to the conclusion that it's going to be the best idea just to spawn proof this area the normal way just by lighting everything up, including all of the caves underground, which there will be a lot of. And also one more thing that's going to make this even more painful is all of these green chunks here are slime chunks in which slimes can spawn even when there is light. So that means I'm going to have to place slabs or buttons on every single one of the blocks that's in these green chunks. As I said, I really do like the idea of making a proper perimeter, but I just don't think it's going to be feasible in this situation, so we might have to save that idea for a different project. Alright, switching back over to our survival world now, we should start heading out to those witch huts, and conveniently they are just right off the ice road that I built out to the mob switch actually. So I've got to ride this out for just over 1,000 blocks I think, and then go off to the left a little bit. Alright, we've reached the location. We're actually really close to that ice path, but yeah, we should start building that portal now and see if we can find those witch huts. Here we are. This place is really cool actually. It's very interesting to see 2 witch huts generating so close to each other. Alright, we need to get prepared now. I've got up to my AFK spot right here, and we're rebuilding the portal. And now I think I'm just going to get a few shulkers of torches for spawn proofing, and also some buttons, I guess, for those slime chunks. I've got a few shulkers of stuff to get started, and I guess let's just start out by starting to spawn proof the surface here. Unfortunately, placing down thousands of torches and buttons isn't going to be the most interesting thing to watch, but I'll try to make a time lapse of it. Welcome back, everybody. That took me, I guess, not as long as I thought it would. Just over an hour to light up this entire area, and I also cleaned out the trees and almost all the passive mobs just so it was a little bit easier. And now that everything's clear, we've, I guess, done the first major step in spawn-proofing the area for the witch farms. Unfortunately, though, there is still a lot more work to go. Even though I spawn-proofed the whole surface, we've also got to do the caves. I started on a few of these ones that are accessible from the surface, but I'm pretty sure that there are a ton more caves underground that I need to go light up. And that is going to take me quite a while. One thing that will make dealing with all those caves quite a bit easier is going to be the mob switch, because I'm not very good at dealing with mobs normally, but if I've got the mob switch on, I should just be able to relax and light up all of those caves quite quickly. Wow, I've actually found something really cool here. I actually found an overworld fossil, and these are super rare structures. I think probably the rarest structure that you can find in the game. And yeah, I found one here right below my witch farm. Let's just leave it and continue lighting up the area, I guess. We need to make sure we don't miss a single spot here, so even spots like this we need to tower up to get at them. Okay, that time the caves took me actually many hours, but I finally got it done, and as you can see, this entire area is lit up. And also, I've got the carpet mob caps showing, and as you can see, we have 0 mobs in the mob cap. And considering we've got this massive area of spawnable land, I would say that's pretty impressive. One thing I've got to mention though is that this is not a perfect perimeter. There are quite a few places where mobs could spawn, including underwater. I tried to spam a bunch of sea lanterns around just like this, but I still think there should be a few spawnable places for drowns. Also, I never did end up slabbing over all of the slime chunks underground, because I decided that it's probably not worth the effort, and throughout my testing, I've been standing at this spot for quite a while. We usually do not go above 1 mob in the mob cap, because probably a slime will just spawn, and then after a few seconds, it'll despawn on its own. And yeah, 1 mob in the mob cap isn't doing much. Even though I would love to have a perfect perimeter here, unfortunately, I just don't think that's feasible, and this was pretty easy to do, so I think I made the right choice. Now that we've made it this far, without many troubles really, I think it's time to start talking about the witch farms. So I'm going to have one right here in this purple bounding box that I'm showing over here, and there's going to be one just maybe 200 blocks over at this witch hut. Alright, so for the witch farm itself, I really wanted to build the absolute optimal farm with the fastest rates that I could feasibly achieve. And I couldn't really come up with a farm design like this myself, so this is by Omango. It's probably the fastest witch farm that you can reasonably build with a single witch hut. So even though we've got a lot of redstone here, it isn't too complex. I don't know if you've seen something like this before, but it's a shifting floor mob farm. And basically the way this works is mobs will spawn either on the soul sand or on the solid blocks, and every few seconds the floor will get shifted left and right, and that will push the witches down through the block. They basically glitch through because the soul sand is slightly lower than a normal block. All this redstone here is basically for the timer that automatically triggers the pushers, and there's also a detecting system that triggers them if there's a witch in the spawning platforms. And for the killing mechanism, we've just got a simple entity cramming system. And witches are pretty hardy. You can't kill them with fire damage, or a few other ways wouldn't work on them. So we've got to use a bunch of minecarts to just basically squish them to death. We could also kill them with fall damage, but that would require the farm to be a lot bigger. And that wouldn't work out with my restrictions because I need to AFK really high up for my farm to work with the area that I've spawn-proofed. So the witches would just end up despawning. Also, if we take a look at the mob caps while running this farm at a extremely high speed, we can see that it usually doesn't go above 10. If we've got 2 of these farms, it should totally be fine. Even if we have a few other mobs that are just lying around in the mob cap, we shouldn't be limited by that. Alright, so I went ahead and loaded in the 2 witch farm schematics. We've got this one here and the other one over the hill. And I believe I've lined them up correctly with the bounding boxes of the witch hut. As you can see, the purple bounding box of the witch hut is right on the outside of the spawning floor. Before we can start building either of these farms though, we've got to deal with the problem that we've got a bunch of dirt and stone in the way of the bottom of the farms. So I'm going to have to dig that out and go down far enough to build the whole killing area and stuff underground. I guess I'll start with this southernmost farm over here, which has a little bit of flatter area and should be easier to deal with. So let's get a beacon over here and dig out the area that we need. Alright, there we go. I've gotten rid of the whole witch hut and some of the ground below it, and this should give enough room to actually build up the farm. As you can see, all of the actual structure of the farm fits in this area, and then down here we just have the area where the witches are going to drop into and get pushed down here to get killed. And I also did the same thing with the other witch hut all the way over here, and that's going to be set up exactly the same. Alright, so far the progress is really good, but I think the next big job is probably going to be actually starting to build the farms, and I'm not sure I have time for that in this episode, but we can take a look at the materials lists and try to prepare everything just so we can have it ready for the next episode. So let's start by collecting all of the blocks we need. So for building blocks, we're just going to need a bunch of slabs and some transparent blocks. And we've also got some solid blocks and soul sand for the spawning floors and some stairs for the roof. For the slabs and the stairs, I think I'm going to go with polished blackstone. I really like using polished blackstone whenever I just need a ton of a generic block for building farms or whatever. I guess it's just because I really like the look of it. Maybe that's just because it's the newest thing. Alright, so I spent the time just collecting building blocks. I actually ran out of blackstone, but I think we should have enough for the stairs and the slabs. I crafted up some glass and concrete, and we also need some soul sand. I also duplicated what's in these shulkers over here for the other farm. Okay, I've done it. It took a lot of crafting and a lot of running back and forth to my different farms and villager trading areas, but I've finally gotten all of the redstone bits for the farms. And this is what it's going to take for one farm, and in the other shulker box, I've got the exact same thing. Let's put down one set of shulkers, I guess, at each one of the witch huts. So one over here, and the other two over at this one. Okay guys, I know that we didn't do much building or anything really interesting in this episode, except for placing down a few thousand torches and a few hundred sea lanterns, but that was quite a lot of effort, and I'm super excited for the new big project that's going to be these double witch farms. Hopefully in the next episode we'll have a chance to finish building up both of these farms and see how that works. But for now, I think that's going to be the end of this episode, so thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
Barbeno's World, Barbeno's World.